I feel lucky that I know how the real world works. To me, the real world is the mountain. You know, out in regular society, it's a lot of who you know, how much money you have, what circles you run in. In the mountains, none of that matters. None of that shit matters. The animal doesn't care who you are. The mountains don't care how much money you have. You'll die just like anything else out there. It doesn't really matter. So society can be, it's not real a lot of times. It's a watered down version of surviving, of thriving.
You know that when you're out there on a hunt, it's gonna be massively painful. It's completely unpredictable. Is that the thinking when you go out there and put yourself in pain?
Hunting has definitely taught me real life lessons of, I'm just gonna have to suck it up, be tough, and get this done. People always say, well, you know, let the animals manage themselves. You know, humans don't need to be involved. And my answer is humans have always been involved. We've always hunted.
How do you kind of explain that to people, where your drive comes to just constantly exhaust yourself, to use every second of the day, and just to put in the reps to just be better? How do you describe your version of that?
Man, I don't really give myself a choice. The only thing I have to offer is hard work. I don't feel like I have this talent, this natural ability, this professional athlete type skill. So I'm like, well, my thing is I can offer hard work, and I just got to ride that. Yeah, there's going to be challenges. It's going to suck. If this race is going to suck, this training's going to suck, life is going to suck sometimes. But if we just keep grinding, it always gets better. Every person I know that stands out for some reason sacrifices a little more, just a little more than everybody else. And that's why they're great at what they do.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Cameron Hanes, the endurance athlete, bow hunter, author, and entrepreneur. You have spent the last 35 years of your life pursuing your goal to become the ultimate predator after falling in love with the sport of bow hunting at the age of 20. You are renowned for your intense preparation and fierce training, which includes working out 7 days a week, oftentimes running a marathon a day, all while holding down a full-time job. Your best-selling book, Endure, How to Work Hard, Outlast, and Keep Hammering, breaks down the mental and physical attributes necessary to reach the top no matter what environment you're in. You believe that there is no shortcut to success and that everybody is capable of pushing themselves further and working harder in order to achieve their goals. David Goggins has described you as one of the toughest men on the planet, while Joe Rogan has called your pursuit of perfection and dedication to fitness superhuman. Cameron, welcome to London Real.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been following you for years and love what you do. Love your approach, your attitude, your spirit. Love it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And, you know, I've been hearing your name a lot lately because I'm going through Goggins' latest book. And, you know, he's on his Audible version. He does like a mini podcast in between chapters. And he's talking about you, which was perfect because I was getting ready for this interview. And he's talking about you showing up at his doorstep and taking him out on a run. And, you know, he does the afterword on your book. And he says this. And again, I've had Goggins in here in studio. And Goggins he is the real deal. He's one of the most intense guys you ever met. He's a very introverted dude. He's a very serious guy. And he said, quote, "I've trained with many of the toughest and hardest men on the planet, and only one stands out. That one is Cameron Hanes." He says, "I used to think I was out here alone, never thinking someone was out there working as hard as I was. I now know there is another." Those are some strong words, Cameron. I mean, when you hear things like that from David, and you've obviously built a relationship with him, what's that like to hear things like that? Because, that's a big statement.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it feels like he's talking about somebody else. I mean, I'm like, oh, that guy sounds like a badass. I wonder who that is, because to me, I know my weaknesses. I know how I hurt every morning when I get up. I know, on a run, I might want to quit, but I just got to keep pushing. And so when he talks about superhuman or whatever it said, or maybe Joe said that, it seems like it's not me, because I know I'm not superhuman. I know I have a lot of weaknesses. So it's a little surreal. Yeah.
What I find interesting is when I think of the two of you, I think of David, who obviously had this traumatic childhood, and yours wasn't a walk in the park, and we could definitely talk about that. But, David seems like he's out there taking souls. He's got all this, pent up anger and rage, and, he's working on things through his physical fitness, which I think is amazing. But you're almost a different character, but you're also both putting in similar results. And I'm wondering, how do you kind of explain that to people, where your drive comes to just constantly exhaust yourself, to use every second of the day, and just to put in the reps to just be better, maybe even for the sake of being better? Like, how do you describe your version of that compared to like a David?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what David, how he goes through it in his head. For me though, I feel like the only thing I have to offer is hard work. I don't feel like, as I talked about in the book, I don't feel like I have this talent, this natural ability, this professional athlete type skill. So I'm like, well, my thing is I can offer hard work, and I just got to ride that. So I just punch that time clock every day, whether it's, for 26 years, it was at a regular 9 to 5. And then I would do everything that I do on the side. I since have retired since the beginning of October. October 3rd was my last day at work. And now it's just same thing, same mindset, punching the clock, but in a different way. And I feel like that's my skill. That's my talent, is that I will outwork people. That works for most people, not for Goggins. Goggins will not be outworked, but that's my goal.
And where did that come from? With you, was that something that was always there as a kid, or is it something that you kind of learned?
That I think came from a kid with very little self-confidence, and didn't really know what I was going to do, how I was going to find my way, how I would, everybody wants to stand out in some way, right? It's just really hard to do because of life challenges. I drank, I probably shouldn't have drank as much as I did. I was young, in my 20s, so I made a lot of mistakes drinking, wrecking trucks, not being a good person. And it's like, sometimes you can't overcome even your own flaws. And so once I was able to overcome that and be like, okay, if I can just make the most of what I have, who knows what's going to happen? So that's been my mindset. I'm just like, I'm going to overcome, I guess, my weaknesses, do everything I can with the goal in mind of, is this helping me? Is this helping me become a better person? And so that's just all I do every day. And at the end of the day, if I've sacrificed and I've worked hard and I feel like I've punched that clock, like I've said, then I feel good, and we do it again the next day. That's been my attitude.
Was there something that clicked in you that got you from being the guy that was drinking and wrecking trucks? Because I'm sure there's a lot of guys like that, out where you are, and here for that matter, that never stopped doing that. Was there something that clicked in you to take you on a new path?
Yeah, I mean, some people, it's true, never get out of their own way. I mean, it's just, they have spurts where they're doing pretty good, things are going good, and then we just screw up because we're humans, right? And then that cycle repeats. The biggest thing for me is I had my son, Tanner. I was pretty young. My wife, I think we were 22 and 24 when we got married, and then 1 year later had Tanner. And that was like, okay, now it's just not me being a loser. I didn't want to be a quote loser dad, because now I'm affecting the legacy of, my first child. And I was like, I got to be better. I have people relying on me now. I got to be a quote role model or a good dad. And so you'd think that would be enough, but it wasn't. I mean, I still still screwed up. But eventually that was pretty much the turning point where my screw ups got a little more spread out, and I kind of got on a more positive, healthy path. And so that's where I've been since, then my wife and I had two more kids, another son and a daughter. And now I know what I got to do, and I just do it.
Right. And I want to get into the bow hunting because I'm actually fascinated with hunting. I've never really done it, but I've been listening to a lot of people talk about it from Rogan, and I had Remy here a couple years back, and I'm fascinated. But
Yeah.
it'd be one thing if you were, at the pinnacle of bow hunting, which I think most agree you are. But on top of that, you put in those sometimes daily marathons. But then on top of that, Cameron, you come home and you lift weights until your arms want to explode. And then on top of that, then you go shoot some more arrows when, your arms are shaking. And it's like,
Yeah.
it seems like you take that to the extreme. Why do all that?
Man, I don't really give myself a choice. I just know that if I don't do that, I'm going to be, I remember there was this one time, this kind of, I guess, encapsulates it. And I don't know if it's a good example or not, because I've had reservations that I said this at this time when I look back now, but I was at the movies with my boys, and, I looked around, and I always, told the boys that, our goal isn't to be average. And I looked around and I said, guys, look at here. Everybody's standing in line to get into the movies, buying popcorn. And we were buying popcorn too. So it's not like we're better than anybody. But I said, look around here, and, look around. I said, this is average. I said, this is the average person. Our goal is to not be average. If you're average, you're a loser. And I was like, God, I looked back and I was like, I didn't want my kids to think that, some people don't have these huge goals to change the world, and that's okay. Or even giving your best, sometimes you can try to justify giving a little less each day. And it's okay if you're a good person and you're out there providing a service people need. We have people like in Oregon, you pull up to a gas station, you get fuel, and somebody comes out and pumps your gas, so those people need jobs. We can't pump our own fuel, but those jobs aren't going to change the world, but they're important jobs. So I was like, I had reservations after I said that years later. I was like, maybe being average is okay for some people. Maybe we're all not destined to make this huge mark, and it's okay to be just a good dad and go to work every day and come home and be a good husband. That's okay. And so, I don't know. I've tried to push my kids to be their best. I've tried to give my best, but also balance that. Maybe some people, I don't know, maybe just being a contributing member of society is okay. I don't remember how this question started. I just remember that I had that example at the movies of my kids and like trying to be a good dad and say the right things and do the right things. And I've screwed up in that too. I can't remember what the original question was. Maybe you do.
No, but it tells us, it says so much about your character. I love it. I was just curious, what was the reaction of your kids when you said that at the movie? Did they get it right away? And they're like, yeah, Dad? Or did they look at you funny? Or did it take them a while to process it?
No, they're used to me saying stuff like that all the time.
Okay.
So it just kind of reinforced what I'd be telling them. And I would tell them, I'm like, because it's not like they're, like a LeBron James with 40-inch vertical and can maybe an NFL guy run a 4.3 40. It's not like they're like that. So, but I'd always say, it's like, I don't expect you to be the best in the world. I just want you to give your best effort. Whatever you're doing, just offer the very best you can. And so I would just tell them that over and over. And I don't know. I had reservations about some things I said. Maybe I pushed them a little too hard growing up because of that. And, when I look back now, I'm like, was I too hard on the boys? But man, they've done great. They are definitely my biggest accomplishment, not just my boys, but my daughter too. And so, yeah, parenting has been up and down the road, just like life. Hopefully I'm getting better at it. Now my oldest is 29. I think Truett is 26. And then my daughter is 19. So I think I think as parents and as humans, we just hopefully get better as we go.
Well, I'm going to take some of this advice because, I've got two boys. They're 5 and 6 right now, and so like, I'm putting them through the paces. But like sometimes I forget that they're 5 and 6, and like
Yeah.
we're reading the Warrior Kids series from Jocko because he's been a guest many times,
Yes.
and that's worked out really well, by the way. And so we're doing pull-ups every night and burpees, and I'm talking about positive mental attitude, and like I'm going in pretty hard, and I'm just sometimes wonder if I'm too intense for these kids, but
I understand.
but I don't know. My dad wasn't like that, but I still got a lot of that stuff myself. So yeah, I don't know, but I appreciate you saying that to your kids, and I appreciate that mentality. You said once, if you're not obsessed, you're going to be mediocre, and obviously that's the way you look at life. You look at life as this chance to give everything you got, and I think David says talent not required. You've got a similar thing, and I know you wear these shirts that say. What does it say? Nobody cares, work harder. I love it. I think the UFC fighter Matt Brown used to wear that shirt as well, or he has it on his Twitter header or something. So,
Oh, does he?
I think
Yeah, he's a beast.
yeah, he's a beast. But you know, talk to me about that expression. Nobody cares, work harder.
Yeah, I mean, some people take that, they get a little triggered by it because they're like, well, I care, people care. They try to turn it into this big thing. It's like my whole thing is it's like I look at it as nobody cares. So if you've had a lot of success in the past, it doesn't really matter. You can't rest on laurels. You got to keep proving yourself. You got to, whatever you did in the past, good, build on it. You got to do more. Or if you failed in the past, you got to suck it up and work harder so you don't fail again. So whether it's success or failure, it doesn't really matter. What matters is how much work you're going to put in and what trajectory you're going to be on after whatever happened, the failure or success. So that's how I look at it. I don't look at it like, well, nobody cares that you accomplished this thing and you should be celebrated. It's fine. Celebrate yourself, get a pat on the back. It's all good, but it doesn't really matter because I know that no matter what I've gone through, whatever failure I've had, no matter how bad I've hurt, somebody might listen to you and they might let you vent. They don't really care. They got their own things they're going through in life. They're not going to give you a bunch of energy to wallow in or to use or to suck from them. So it doesn't really matter. They'll listen at best, but at the end of the day, it's going to be you. You're going to have to just pick yourself up and get back to work. And so that's the point to the slogan.
Yeah, you've heard people say like they give people a 30-day no complaining challenge. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. And some people try it. When I saw that shirt, it seemed to address the fact that people like to complain. And I think you just alluded to it. Even if you're complaining to the person that cares about you the most, that complaining never gets you anywhere. First of all, the person that cares about you the most still doesn't want to hear it. Complaining disempowers you and them. So when I see that shirt, to me, it speaks to me of stop complaining, because we're all complaining somewhere in our head, right? Subconsciously, small, maybe it's the pain in your ankle, maybe it's the this, maybe it's the this. And for me, it's just like, it says, shut the hell up and just work harder, because if you work harder, then you won't have that to complain about.
Yeah, well, that's how I look at it. I mean, you just keep putting in the work and see what happens. But yeah, complaining about anything doesn't really make any positive difference.
No. You love the fact of just training for misery, embracing the pain. And like, maybe this is where we can segue a little bit into hunting, because you know that when you're out there on a hunt, is that it's going to be massively painful. It's completely unpredictable. You've got weather challenges. You've got unknown end date challenges, right? You don't know when you're coming back, how you're going to get back, if you're going to get back. And you're going to be in a situation that's potentially much more painful than anything you're going to put yourself through on the road. Is that the thinking when you go out there and put yourself in pain?
The thinking that I have when I head into the mountains is that this is going to be a great challenge. I'm going to have to be on my A game, basically, because I'm hunting an animal. And I know hunting, especially over there, is looked at differently probably by a lot of people. But for me, hunting has always been, I mean, I grew up in this little small logging town about 20 minutes from where I am right now, lived here my whole life. And hunting and hunters were kind of looked up to. if you could get a deer and put that meat in your freezer every year, that was a good thing. It's like people would say, hey, did you get your buck this year? You know, that's a male deer buck. And you get your buck this year? And that was like a good thing. It's like, yeah, I got him, you know, got a nice 4-pointer or whatever. So when I look at hunting, it's always been in a positive light. Nowadays, it's a little bit different for some people in society. And even though here in America, I think it's 96% of people eat meat. So still most people are eating meat, and most people don't hunt. So what are they doing? They're going to the store and they're buying that beef or, you know, chicken or whatever it is. And so animals are dying. Animals die for us to survive. That's just the way it goes. That's, I mean, even if you're not eating meat, you know, still these fields where salads and breads and different things are made still have to be sprayed, and animals get killed during harvest and everything. So for, you know, life begets life, I guess, is the thing. So for me, it's very empowering for me to say, well, I'm going to eat meat. My family's going to eat meat, and I'm going to have to provide that meat. And I go out to the mounds, and I'm like, I got to be at my best, because this animal isn't committing suicide. He's not offering himself up for me to put an arrow through. So I'm going to have to outwit something that lives in the mountains 365 days a year. To do that as a human and get into bow range, which is very close compared to rifle range, that is very difficult. So I have to be in tune. I have to be physically prepared. I have to be mentally dialed in. I have to be able to consider the weather challenges, as you mentioned. Do I have enough water? Do I have enough food? If weather comes in, do I have shelter? All these things are going through your mind. But really, all I need to focus on is, can I get in bow range of this animal and release a perfect arrow? While all this other thoughts are going through your head about sleeping and, like I said, hydration and all this. So it's very taxing. It's very hard. And then when you do get an animal killed, then you have to break that animal down. You quarter it up, you hang the quarters in the tree, you load up your pack, you pack, you know, if it's an elk, there's going to be, say, 300 pounds of meat that has to come out before it spoils, before it gets in a freezer or refrigerator. So the clock is running. All that is so intense. That's pretty much what my focus is. And what I've learned is, like, a challenge like that in the mountains is so real. You can't make you can make excuses, but you're not going to succeed. So if you're going to succeed, there's going to be no excuses. There's going to be challenges you just overcome. When you get that kill, it's time to work. Nobody cares about your sore, your back hurt. Nothing matters. So hunting has definitely taught me real life lessons of, I'm just going to have to suck it up, be tough, and get this done. And that's pretty much why anybody knows who I am, because of bow hunting, which is crazy. I mean, you in London know who I am because I came from a tiny, tiny town where there's 24 or 28 in my graduating class in high school, and came out of that. And now I'm talking to Brian Rose on London Reel. It's just crazy because of bow hunting. But bow hunting has made me who I am. That's a long answer to a quick question, but it's definitely changed my life. So yeah, hunting has been empowering to me.
It's fascinating. Just all the details about what makes a bow hunter as opposed to a rifle hunter. But like you said, and all the people with conceptions around hunting. And then you just mentioned the meat. Before we go on, how do you get 300 pounds of meat out of the wilderness? Like, and how much time do you have? But like,
yeah,
you can't do that in one carry. For sure you can't. No.
It's multiple trips. So say, I remember I killed a bull by myself. It was about 10 miles back. So if you're going to get 300 pounds that was kind of a smaller bull. So it was maybe 250 pounds of meat. And then I might have 50 pounds of gear. So it's still 300 pounds. So if you say you make 4 trips with 75 pounds each, that's 4 trips, right? That's to get your 300 pounds out. But if you're 10 miles back, you went back in there 10 miles, you killed a bull, you load up 75 pounds after you get it broke down, which takes hours. To break down a bull after you kill it, get the guts out, get the skin off, get the quarters off, like I said, cut the back straps off, which, the quarters are the front shoulders and the hind quarters, but still the back straps, which are right along the spine. Those are like the premium steaks. And then you got all the neck meat on a bull. So you get all that loose meat cut off, the back straps, the inside tenderloins, which are right under the spine, right above the guts. You get all that off. That takes hours. So you've been back 10 miles just with your hunting gear. You break the animal down. So 75 pounds out, that's 10 miles. So now you're at 20 miles. You go back for another load, that's 30 miles. 75 pounds, 40 miles. 50, I mean, you got miles with weight on your back. You better be prepared. It is so much work. So to get a bull out by yourself, it's 4 trips. If you're 10 miles back, it's a lot of miles. If you're 2 miles back, it's still a lot of miles, but it's just, bottom line, it's a ton of work.
And you got a freezer in your truck so it can get cold right away? No.
So if you kill a bull, normally I'm hunting, what I like to hunt the most is bull elk. Archery season is in September. So in September in the mountains, it can be very hot, but it also, nights can get cool because that weather's kind of turning over here. And so if you get on if you think of the mountains, the sun comes up, the south side of the mountains is always warm. The north side is always cooler because how the sun goes, that north side timber is darker and cooler. So if you kill a bull, you look at where's the coolest timber here? If there's water, it's always cooler by the water. What would be best is along the water, north side timber where it's thick. You get that meat in that timber, you get up in a tree where the wind can kind of blow through, and the wind can keep that meat cool for a few days, even if the temperature maybe on the south side might be 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Are you guys Fahrenheit or Celsius over there?
Celsius.
Okay, well, I don't know how it translates, but anyway, 70 degrees would be too warm for meat, but it might be 70 degrees on the south side. On the north side, it might never get above 40. And then if you get the wind, that'll glaze over that meat. That meat will last for a few days, right? So you got a couple days at least to get that meat out. So as long as you get the meat hung in an area that's cool where the wind can move around, you're gonna have a couple days.
Okay.
So that's how that works. And then, okay, so to answer your question, you get it to the truck, and hopefully what I've had to do before is like, if I get it to the truck at the trailhead, I might have to drive to town with that, take it to a processor or somebody who will let me hang the meat in the cooler, and then go back for more. So it just depends on the weather, essentially, is how long that meat will last. If it's cool at the truck, at the trailhead, and I can keep that meat there in the shade and then go back for another trip and get it all out, and then one trip to the processor, we're good to go. If not, you do what you got to do. The focus is, and a lot of people have this another misconception, is that hunters are trophy hunters. They make it seem like, we go out and we just kill these animals and take the antlers. I mean, I got antlers right here above me, and we just take the antlers and we're quote trophy hunters. I am a trophy hunter in regard to, I want to kill an old animal. Usually old animals have big antlers, but that doesn't mean that I don't value that meat like it's gold. That meat is what my family and me survive on all year. And so, yeah, I like big antlers because I like killing old animals that have served their purpose and passed on the genes and done whatever they needed to do for to keep the herd healthy. But also that meat that I work so hard to pack out, get processed and get to my freezer, and then ultimately on my dinner table is as valuable as gold to me. So you can be both. You can be both a trophy hunter and a meat hunter, and that's me.
And what do you say to the people who say, Cameron, why are you out there killing these poor innocent animals? Why don't you just leave them alone and let them live? And I mean, I'm sure you've bumped into someone who is offended when they see your Instagram channel or they see the trophy. And what if it's even a reasonable, intelligent person that just doesn't get it? What do you say to them? Have you had those conversations?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all the time. I mean, that's the one thing with hunting. I mean, hunting has always been kind of I guess like an echo chamber type thing, because we had the Outdoor Channel where you could watch hunting shows on TV. We had hunting magazines where hunters would buy it, read the story. That's what I started doing, was writing hunting articles, and people would buy those hunting magazines. But really, you're preaching to the choir. The people who are watching the hunting on TV are hunters. The people who are buying the magazines are hunters. Now with social media is, I reach millions of people, and a lot of them aren't hunters. So now I have to think about, well, how is this being perceived by people who didn't grow up the way I grew up, who didn't grow up looking up to hunters and giving respect to people who filled their freezer on their own, being self-sufficient. So now it's people who were from the city. Hunting has never been part of the culture they've grown up in. How do those people look at my page? I think about that a lot in the words that I write, in the captions and the photos that I share. And yes, an animal dies. That's just a fact of life. A hunter, I think what I like about hunting is that we will accept the fact that there's going to be blood on our hands. We're killing an animal and we're doing it. We're not paying somebody else to do it for us, like what happens when you go buy meat at the store. But I also have to think about, well, if this is being perceived by somebody who hasn't hunted, maybe I need to take time to explain why this is so valuable, why animals can't just manage themselves. People like to say, Mother Nature will take care of itself. If there's too many animals here, they die off, or if there's too many predators, they kill the prey. Then once the prey is gone, the predators will starve because there's not enough prey to sustain them. And that can happen, but it takes a long time, and it really screws up a lot of what we have going. The North American wildlife model, which has been in place for about 100 years, has resulted in more deer, elk, and bear now than there was 100 years ago. And that's biology managing habitat and managing the carrying capacity of the land with the animals, predator and prey. And an example that I'll give of when it's not managed is the moose populations up in Alaska. If the bears aren't kept in check, the black bears and the grizzly, they'll follow the moose around in the snow, and the moose can't get away, and the grizzlies will just kill them. They won't even eat them all. I mean, there's been documented cases of one big boar grizzly, which is a male bear, is a boar, killing, I think it was 30 some moose, and it can't just killing them and letting them lay. So animals don't think about, well, what's best for the herd? What do we need? How many animals do we need to take? That's the wildlife biologists that allocate those tag numbers. And a tag number will be like, okay, for this, the carrying capacity of this land in this area of Alaska, we need this many moose hunted and killed. We need this many bear hunted and killed. And then they can both coexist and both be healthy, have healthy numbers. And so that's what it's all about. It's not just hunters going out and killing all they want. It's tracked very closely. And it's not just, if you take humans out of it, and that's another thing. People always say, well, let the animals manage themselves. Humans don't need to be involved. And my answer is, humans have always been involved. We've always hunted. There's always been hunters. It's only now when people are saying that, well, hunting isn't necessary because we have a beef cow or a lamb or a pig. They're raised to kill. They're raised to provide meat. Wild animals, just let them be. And it's like, well, no. Hunters have always had a place in the circle of life in the mountains. It's only till now we're saying, well, maybe we don't really need to have that place out there. It's like, well, you can't just take us out. We're a key part of that. We're a key part of keeping all that habitat healthy and the animal numbers healthy. And one other thing I'll say is that hunters, all the money that we pay in the hunting licenses and tags, that all goes to habitat restoration, building water sources. Like in the winter, snow will come in, and if the deer get trapped in the mountains, they can't migrate down to lower country to survive. So hunters, some of that money we pay for license and tags goes to, it's called winter migration routes, keeping those migration routes where we're not building houses where the deer normally get out of the mountains and go down to the lowlands. And if there's a big subdivision there, then the deer won't come down, and then they'll die up in the mountains. So it's like all that money goes into things like that. So it's not just hunters out killing whatever they want, murdering stuff, cutting off heads like people have in their mind maybe, that don't really understand it, and then leaving the meat lay and not really caring about the environment. It's the exact opposite. It's hunters care about the animals as much or more than non-hunters. And we understand how this equation works. So you can't really have an Instagram post that says all that, but in little bits and pieces, I can put up parts of that and explain parts of it. And I know that it's worked. I know some people are going to look at what I do and just be, write me off and just judge me. But some people are going to look at it and be like, that actually, I never thought about that. That actually makes a little sense. And I've had a lot of those encounters, and actually had a lot of people that have changed their perspective of hunters because of maybe some of the captions and posts that I've made.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why somebody from the city or a vegan that's, hanging out in Los Angeles looks at your post and says, well, here's a guy that goes out there to cut a head off and stick it on a wall. But if they actually walk a mile in your shoes, they realize that you have a connection with that animal, almost a strange, sacred relationship with it when you kill it, and it becomes something that feeds your family. And then by being out there in the wilderness, you have this deep connection to the environment and to protecting it, more so than that person in the city who's pointing the finger at you. And the more I listen to you and Joe Rogan and Remy and all these people, even though I haven't been on an elk hunt and I'd love to go at some point, I can see how you guys are, and somehow by killing those animals are actually closer to understanding that than someone who doesn't. So that's the impression I get. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to explain something when I'm sure the natural tendency is, why don't you guys leave us alone, because we've been doing this for a few hundred years, and you guys stick to your Beyond Meat burgers and that, that are killing more animals than I am, and et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate you doing that. Talk to me about bow hunting, because it's something very different than hunting with a rifle. Why is that something that's really important to you, and how is it different? How do you explain that to people?
Well, I think rifle hunting is a good, introduction to hunting. It's longer range, so you can shoot further. You don't have to be like in bow hunting, you're in the red zone of these animals, which are built to survive, as we talked about. And you have to be very close with the rifle. You have extended distance where you can shoot and get a lethal kill on that animal. So it's a little, I don't want to say easier, but it's a different set of challenges. Bow hunting is a very high set of challenge. Why I like bow hunting is because of that challenge, because of that test, because I have to be at my best if I'm going to make that happen. And it's very difficult. And the way I look at it, I've killed a lot of animals. I've been on a lot of rifle hunts too. I don't rifle hunt myself. I haven't rifle hunted since, 1989. But I've had my kids out. I've had father-in-law, family, friends. I take them out and they rifle hunt. The biggest difference for me is that I like that connection with that animal. I like being close. I like seeing that animal more, the interact. It's just, I don't know, it's just more of an intimate setting. And the way I look at it is, rifle hunters, when you shoot a rifle, it's a big report of the rifle. It's loud. Every animal knows what happened, knows that there's a big sound that's obviously startling. A rifle will kill by shock and damage, broken bones, torn up muscle. It's a shock type kill. Whereas archery, I've killed bulls. I come back, pull my bow back, release an arrow. The arrow will go through the animal. And these are big animals, 800-pound bull elk that fight, jab each other with antlers. I've had them where they didn't know what happened. They didn't hear anything because the bow's quiet. They're used to being jabbed, so they felt something. They may have thought a bull snuck up and hit them with an antler in the side, but they don't really know what happened. And they'll, run off, look around, and then because they're bleeding, because an arrow will kill by hemorrhage and blood loss, you got a razor sharp broadhead on there. So the arrow will go completely through the animal, cause this hemorrhage, but it won't be loud. If I do it right, they'll never know I'm there. The arrow will go through, blood loss happens, blood pressure drops, and dies in seconds, never really knowing what happened. To me, that's what I call an honorable death that the animal deserves. These bull elk that I hunt, I want them to be more than 10 years old, which is a long time in the mountains. And if they've lived 10 years and I can release a perfect arrow and kill them, and they don't I feel like as far as in the wild, it's about as beautiful death as you're going to get, because if it's not by a hunter, it's by a predator. It's by getting too old and weak to find food and starving, or if they can't run because again, they're too old and weak, then the predator basically eats them alive. And a wolf or a bear will start eating generally from the hindquarters, start eating their butt or tearing out their guts because it's soft there on their stomach. Definitely not. I mean, you can imagine that'd be about the worst way to go, right? So a perfectly placed arrow to me is the best option for that animal at that age that's served its purpose. It's not going to get any better in its life. Life isn't going to get any easier. And so when I look at it, that's what I think about as a bow hunter. If I do it right, I'm offering that animal a merciful death. And that's what draws me to bow hunting, just being respectful, honorable, and hunting these animals in a way that I can honor their life, I guess.
It's a beautiful thing. And I think it's important for people to realize there are other options for dying, and they're really not pretty. I know we watch those National Geographic things where they're off galloping in the forest, but they don't show, like you said, death by eating or starvation or all these other horrible ways to go. And that's the way they're all going otherwise, right?
That's it. I mean, you can look at, there's an Instagram page, Nature is Metal, I think. And I mean, I don't like watching those animals suffer. I mean, but the wild is brutal. It is brutal and unforgiving. And animals have no compassion. I mean, the only predator that has compassion is humans. We're the only ones that care. An animal, that they'll stand there, and I've seen videos of impala standing on all fours, and I can't remember if it's wild dogs or hyenas, but tearing out their guts. They're not dead, but their guts are strewn out on the ground, and those animals are eating them, and the impala is just standing there. And it's like, I couldn't imagine. I mean, it couldn't get any worse. So it's death is never easy. I mean, it's never easy. I don't care. You know, we can talk about humans, animals, whatever. Everybody thinks they're going to live forever. Everybody thinks everybody they care about and love is going to live forever. It's just not going to happen. I mean, life and death is beautiful and brutal and sad and hard and happy and rewarding. It's all of it. But we can't just pretend that the bad things never happen, that death never happens. So if we can accept death, and we know for us to survive, animals are going to die. And if we can say, okay, that's going to happen for me to survive, there's going to be animals die. How can I play a part in this? How can I own this, so to speak, and honor life, or honor death just like I honor life? And so I think that's just a good perspective to have.
Now tell me how you get this shot off, because this boggles my mind. I watched a video, I think you went out with Rogan on this incredible hunt where there were elk everywhere. And a couple times you were real close, but you didn't take a shot. And I believe you're looking for like the double lung shot, so you get this super clean kill. Now, again, for me, I mean, it's a dynamic situation. You're super close. Obviously, you're worried about being detected at any moment, and you're trying to find an arrow in a very specific place. It seems to me like a really tall order to try to do that. Explain how that works.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It is, because like I said, these animals are built to survive. And the biggest thing with archery is the wind. I mean, if you don't hunt, you wouldn't think about it like we do. But if that animal, if the wind is at your back and the wind is going towards the animal, you will never kill it, because their nose is their number one source of defense, essentially. So they say you can fool their eyes, like they can see movement, and if you don't move, they can be like, okay, maybe I don't know what that was, maybe just a bird flickering around. So you can fool their eyes, you can fool their ears, you can break something. Elk make a lot of noise. They're big animals, so they're breaking things or kicking rocks. It happens. So you can do that, and they can.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.